faith, firearms, and freedom. This is Armed Lutheran Radio.
Evening, all. It is our monthly Reformation Gun Club online hangout for November 2019, and just getting started here, waiting for some folks to show up. While we do that, I'm going to take care of a little housekeeping here. Let's see. An awful lot has happened since we were together last. So we will got a lot to discuss. And of course, it's Thanksgiving week, so all kinds of fun. Let's see. Just to kind of bring you up to date on what the plans are for the remainder of the year as we're fast approaching Christmas and the end of 2019. And we've got a bunch of stuff coming up. The Pistol Packin' Padre. Ooh, you've got a feedback thing there. Ooh, I love the t-shirt. I cannot hear you. I've got nothing but static, unfortunately. No more static.
How is it now?
There we go. I didn't recognize you without the full beard thing going on.
How does that sound now?
Better. Good.
Okay. I just had to unplug it back in. Technology.
Great when it works.
That's right.
I was just going to go over real quick what our plans are for the rest of the year for those who will be watching this later. This coming Sunday is, what is it, episode 196? And it's going
something like that, yeah.
I'm losing count.
195.
195?
Yes.
No, that was last week. That was last week, was 195.
Was it?
I think so.
Okay.
I keep moving the thing around trying to center my head in the thing, and I keep turning it the wrong direction. Let's go. There we go now.
Oh, you're right. I got to change the You see that I uploaded my file already?
I did.
All right. I just changed the file name.
Next Sunday, this coming Sunday is going to be because it's the last episode before Black Friday. We're going to have our Christmas wish list episode. And we've got our usual, we're doing it a little bit earlier, I think, this year, just in time for all the Black Friday shopping. Next week, the original schedule was for Clinging to God and Guns, and that depends on whether or not you and I have an opportunity to get together this week.
Right.
And I know that's always a challenge as the closer we get to the holidays. So we'll see how that works out. The next week, December 8th, will be our last variety show of the year. And we'll have another Clinging to God and Guns December 15th for episode 199. And then we're going to do our December online hangout is actually going to be a little bit earlier. We're going to do that on Friday, December 14th, 9 o'clock Central. And we're going to use the audio for that or a good portion of it will become episode 200. And we got some special plans for that. And then that episode 200 lands on December 22nd, right before Christmas. And then, of course, we'll have our Christmas special. We'll re-air that for what it'll be the third straight year. That'll be on Christmas Eve. And then episode 201 and 202 are going to be best of. So you will have an extended break for the cast, and we'll be
I'm just kidding. I enjoy this.
And then we'll be back on track. Our first episode of 2020 will be January 12th, episode 203. All right. So let's see. We got more people? Not yet.
Slackers.
I know. That's terrible. Got some comments here. Let's see. Jeremy just showed up. I've got to send out my.
Since Jeremy is in such close proximity to me, I've got to get him that other microphone so that he can have some high quality audio when he joins us on this.
You can just bring him over to your house and kick back and have a drink.
Church basement.
There you go. Let's see. What do you typically do? What's your Thanksgiving usually like? You got family in California, you got family there in Minnesota. What's the plans?
Well, it's just spent with my family in Minnesota, which is my wife and myself and our 3 kids, and my in-laws live out here as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the first Easter we were out here, Easter 2006, we had my wife's parents and her mother-in-law, or not mother-in-law, my mother-in-law, my wife's parents and grandmother come out from California to visit. And that was one of those, it was a completely picturesque time of year. It was beautiful. The sun was shining. It was about 65 degrees. They went back to California, sold their homes, moved out to Minnesota. So that's our family here in Minnesota.
You didn't tell them about the rest of the the weather after Thanksgiving?
My mother-in-law and my in-laws, it's a long story, but I'll make it short. My in-laws, they met while they were both in the Navy stationed in Annapolis. And so they had experienced what's the word I'm looking for? New England winter. Brain fart. I haven't even started drinking yet. I'm already forgetting words like New England. So my mother-in-law had experienced that. They had broken up. They were engaged to each other back in Annapolis. They broke up. They both had marriages of their own. They both ended up divorced. My mother-in-law, when my wife was 7 years old, we refer to him as sperm donor. He walked out on my wife and her twin brother and her sister, who's 2 years older than her. And so they ended up reconnecting. My in-laws ended up reconnecting 30 years later, and now they're married. So it's kind of a cool story.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So in-laws come over, you do the turkey and the ham, the whole 9 yards, or?
We're doing turkey this year. I was going to take the real easy route. We have one of those Instant Pots, but it's not the Instant Pot brand. So it's, if any of you are looking for one of them, I recommend the Crock Pot brand. It's awesome. We love it. I actually own the Instant Pot brand too, and I hated it so much I took it back. So, we actually cooked a turkey breast, just everything, but didn't have the legs, arms, wings, legs, and arms. I guess turkeys don't have arms; they have wings. So we cooked that in the Instant Pot from frozen to cooked, 45 minutes, perfectly tender, moist, and juicy. And so now we're going to try for a whole turkey, but it's a small one, 11-pound turkey. So if you want an awesome Thanksgiving turkey that's cooked quickly, you don't even have to thaw out the stupid bird. It's a great idea.
Nice. I like it. Yeah, we kind of we keep it simple. We get the turkey and the ham from one of the local barbecue places, and we don't have to cook them 24 hours or whatever it is. We just put them in the oven for 4 hours and fix all the fixins. That's the big to-do. We all gather around in the kitchen and work on the different fixins. And so then because it's just the 4 of us here in Texas, it's just a cozy little foursome. We sit back and we watch the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and while we're prepping everything, maybe take in a little football and pig out and then pass out early.
It's sad though that the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is almost turning into another gay pride parade.
Yeah,
sadly. But this is going to sound like sacrilege to some. I have found that over the years, it is far less stress when it's just my immediate family.
Yeah.
I know that might sound terrible to some, but yeah, I prefer that. To be honest, I love my family. I love you all. But I'd rather have individual gatherings with different sets of families. And yeah, when we're all together, when there's 30 of us, it's nuts.
Yeah, I imagine that's a little crazy. We used to actually do back in North Carolina, we used to do the extreme other end of that. Because my parents were both divorced and remarried, and her parents were divorced and remarried. We had families that we went to all over the state. And so we would eat like 4 meals on Thanksgiving.
Gosh, gut buster.
Just go and eat a little bit and then run to the next place and eat a little bit and then go to the next place and eat a little bit. And then, yeah. And at each place, it's like, oh, you need some more food. They keep putting food in like, no, I've got 3 more meals ahead of me. So that's one of the benefits of moving to Texas. Well, obviously we don't get to see family as much, but we can sort of, like you said, kind of keep it simple and just the 4 of us and focus on the immediate family and enjoy the time. And speaking of the parade, more often than not, once the parade gets weird, we switch to the local parades anyway. Watch the Dallas parade instead. All right. It looks like Jeremy has joined us. How are you, Jeremy?
I'm tired. I just got done working a 14-hour day.
Oh, man.
And I was at Menards 3 times.
Yikes.
Okay, little inside story. This is great. It happened, Jeremy goes to Menards about every single day. And I went to Menards, there was a span of 7 trips for me, I think it was. And every single trip, I ran into Jeremy at Menards. So,
well,
2 trips after that, he's leaving just as I get there. And then another one after that, I'm sitting at a stoplight and I see him go by after you just left Menards. So,
well, they get a lot of my money.
Well, a lot of your customers' money, right?
Yeah. Well,
So, what is? Give us an idea of what you've got planned for Thanksgiving, Jeremy.
Well, I would like to say I'm going to go hunting, but I think my brother's coming over, not till noon, so maybe I'll hit a field or 2, and I don't know. I'll probably fall asleep on the couch.
Just don't fall asleep in the deer stand.
No, I do pheasant hunting, so.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
My dog would have to drag me.
We're supposed to do an interview with a guy on Tuesday, and he'll be in a deer stand when I interview him. So, for the other podcast, just hope he doesn't see a deer, and the dogs will go crazy, and then he'll start shooting. Although it might make interesting audio.
It could.
All right. I am going to. It looks like Dan is also waiting to join in, so I'm going to post the link on the Gun Club page, and we'll see if we can get a few more in here. Mia was supposed to join us, and I believe, and we switched it to Saturday or Friday because we were hoping to get Sergeant Bill with us. Let's see.
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right. So we'll see who else shows up. Dan, I posted the link on the Facebook page and the Reformation Gun Club group. So grab that there. And
speaking of Dan, he's going to be in Minnesota for Thanksgiving, so we can't get together for Thanksgiving. Of course, he's got family he's seeing, but
right.
We're getting together for breakfast on December 2nd. So anybody who wants to fly out to Minnesota to have breakfast with me and Dan, be awesome.
Awesome.
If you want to fly out to Minnesota, our winter has arrived early. So if you want to experience, cold, if you're from a warmer climate.
Last time I flew through Minnesota, the airline had to put me up for the night because they canceled all the flights out of Minneapolis. I flew from Winnipeg on a twin prop thing that I thought we were going to die, and there was no heat in the cabin. And we got there, and the airport in Minneapolis was almost empty, and because they'd shut all the flights down earlier in the day, and there was almost nobody there, and the airline met us with a bus and took us out to, I don't even know where, some little suburb, to a little hotel, and then the next morning came back and picked us up and stuck us on an airplane, and off we went.
Well, that was nice of them. They could have said, "Yeah, screw it, you can just sleep here in the terminal." But
yes, and I was a little worried about that, to be honest.
What airline was it?
Midwest. They don't even fly anymore, I don't think. Is it Midwest?
Yeah, I don't think there's a Midwest Airlines left.
Forever since this happened. Little warning for anybody who flies for business: don't let your cheapskate boss, book your tickets for you. Because what he would do in order to save money was he would book back-to-backs. And what he would do was, especially if it was a client that he figured you were going to have to fly back to, or an area you were going to have to fly back to. So he would book, instead of booking a round trip, he would book 2 overlapping one-ways. So he would book you there, and then the return flight. Yeah. And it was like the return for the first leg was going to be months later. And yeah, it was bizarre. And the airlines hated it because it saved money. You could buy cheaper, 2 cheap tickets, less than the one round trip. And my boss did that all the time on us. And I ended up running late trying to get to the airport in Winnipeg, and the Southwest Airlines gate looked at my ticket, and I said, I'm late. I'm so sorry. We're running. And we were 30 minutes before they were going to close the door. And they were like, nope, you're not getting on the airplane. We're already closing the door, and there's nothing. Let me see if we can get you on another flight. Hand me your ticket. I handed him the ticket, and he looked at it and he said, oh, I see what you did. And his eyes got all squinty. I was like, what? He said, I'm sorry, but you're stuck. You're going to have to buy a whole new ticket.
Wow.
I was like, oh my gosh, what is this going to cost me? How am I going to get home? And he said, I don't remember what it was going to cost, but it was something, astronomical. And I called the office, and they couldn't work anything out. And then finally, I guess this guy left. He went on, his shift ended. And the next guy who replaced him took pity on me. And he put me on that stupid turboprop thing that I thought I was going to die. It was like, throw me in with the luggage, and and got me to Minneapolis. Mia's here. Hey.
Hey, Mia.
And she can't hear us. Or maybe she can. I can hear her typing. No headset yet. No microphone? Did she send a message?
Can you hear me?
Oh,
yes.
I can hear you. Yes, awesome. How are you?
I'm good. I'm trying to get my other thing to connect, but the battery is dead.
That's all right. You sound great. What have you been up to?
Disconnecting, it appears.
Oh no. I just went and... There's Dan. Okay, so I think we can do up to 6.
Okay.
Although the screen's going to get really weird.
Dan.
There's Dan. We lost Mia somehow. Where did Mia go? And I can't hear Dan. This is not going to be fun for the listeners. We're just dealing with our intermittent microphone issues.
Can you hear anything?
I cannot hear you.
I can hear you very faintly.
Very, very, very faintly.
Let's see if I can fix that.
That may have been what was causing Mia some problems. She was having some audio issues, I think. Oh, Mia's got a slow connection. I wonder where she is. She had the deer antler skull thing on the back. She might be at a lodge somewhere where they don't have much internet connection. In a yurt out on the plains of Colorado. All right. Well,
Can you hear me?
it's only faintly better. Mia's back. Coming to us from the wilds of Colorado. She's back.
There she is.
It's a little laggy, so I might be. Can you hear us? No, she's still got some connection issues, looks like.
Yeah.
Well, darn. Dan, how's your audio? Let's see if we can hear you now.
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Oh, that's better.
It's a better, but only marginally.
Let me play with it.
Just give us a shout when you think you've got it fixed, and we'll don't worry about interrupting us. All right, I am going to keep her in the studio here, but take her off the screen because I had her frozen in a rather unflattering shot. So we'll take that off of there. Hopefully she can reconnect. There, she's moving again. It's reconnected. Dare we try? Here goes.
Mia, if you change your camera resolution to low definition, that might help with your bandwidth. Yeah.
Well, my regular Wi-Fi the battery is dead and it's not charging. So I'm like trying to connect with another one and it's not it's good.
It seems to be working fine now.
Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Before I couldn't hear you at all.
Oh no.
So hopefully you can hear me.
So you're out in the middle of nowhere with Wi-Fi hotspot? Nope, she can't hear me again.
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, good. This is going to be fun. So are you? Where are you? Are you using a Wi-Fi hotspot, or you're not at home? Are you?
I'm at home. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we have good internet out here. You know.
Oh my goodness. So how are you?
I know what that's like with the internet because where I live, there is literally your only option is either satellite, which we had for a while, which was terrible.
It's worse than dial-up.
Yeah.
Yes. Or dial-up, or a service that gets a signal off of a transmitter from a cell tower. And
yeah.
If I was to take my choice over those three, dial-up was the most reliable. But we've got 4G Verizon out here. And I've got the old grandfathered Verizon Unlimited plan. And so I buy unlocked phones from that are Android, and it works great. So it is faster than fast.
Oh, God.
We were just talking about Thanksgiving. What have you got planned?
So I actually just came from a holiday dinner, which is partly why I'm late. And then I leave this coming week to go see my in-laws. They live near Denver, so about 6 hours away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Big family get together?
Nah, it'll be a small one. Yeah.
Leah coming in?
She's in Montana visiting friends up there.
Okay.
Yep.
And how is she doing?
She's doing good. She's doing really good.
We saw something that you posted of her doing trick shots with a clay and a shotgun. How long ago was that?
That was a year ago in September, or actually the one I shared, I think might have been from last April, but she shared another one that was from last September that I hadn't seen, that she actually was using a clay thrower and hucking the clays and shooting them, which I think is pretty cool because I can barely use those little hand clay throwers. So. She's pretty talented.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, she's very talented. Well, I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving. What turkey on the menu this year? Anything you've hunted?
Nothing. Well, actually, I'm gonna take deer pastrami. So for appetizers. So yeah, that'll be. It's not on the official menu because I'm not hosting, so I don't get to choose what's on the menu. But
little potluck.
But it will be there.
There you go. Last year we did just a one-on-one for the gun club, and it was just you and me, and you had just come in from you had not yet rendered the deer, and it was just sitting outside or something. What was it? You had just come in from hunting it and bringing it in from the field. Yeah, and then rushed inside, washed off, and we did the thing, and you were like, well, got to go clean the deer.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think I had left it out on the tractor while I was talking to you.
Cool. All right, Dan, I think we can hear you now.
I think you can probably hear me now.
Awesome. What plans have you got for Thanksgiving? Any Thanksgiving traditions you're partaking in this year?
Well, this year I get to go have Thanksgiving with my parents. Oh. I'm going to be not far from the Padre, going back to Minnesota.
Very cool. And having breakfast with the pastor as well. That's funny that you would mention that, John, because I was actually this week I was thinking what would be really cool next year is to find a place that's within driving distance of all of us, Kansas City area, somewhere in there, where we could all meet up and then invite people to come and join us, have dinner, hang out, whatever.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Any interest in trying to do something like that?
That'd be awesome.
Cool. Just find somewhere that's in the middle, not a terrible drive, maybe 5-6 hours from each of us, and rent us a place and have dinner and hang out and meet. We don't get to see each other face to face. I haven't seen John face to face. I've only seen Mia once, and it's what's it been, 4 years now. And
has it been that long?
Yes, I know.
Wow.
And then next, we've all agreed, for those of you, the two of you may not have heard, the 14th is going to be the December hangout, and we're going to do some special stuff and have. I've got a few people lined up. I think I'm hoping that will join us as well, and it'll be our 200th show. We'll take the audio from that hangout and use that for the 200th episode, kind of a reunion show, and reminisce about old times. And
I won't tell the story now. I'll save it for that episode, but I will have to tell everyone how exactly it is that you and I became acquainted.
Oh, that's right. Yes, save that for the show.
I think awesome. There's a few that have heard it, but we'll just tease that for right now.
Oh, there's a teaser.
Yeah.
It is quite the looking back on it at that time, I'm sure it was like, oh gosh, why, Lord, why?
Oh, I know. But it was horrible.
But looking back, it really was the most. It makes for a great story. It does.
It does. It's a really cool story. So that'll be for. I'm glad you brought that up. I almost forgot about that. That would be terrific to retell that. And I'll have to break out. I've still got the Field and Stream that I found with Mia on the cover. That is how I found Mia, and so.
And little did you know.
Little did I know what I was
stuck with me.
And you had no idea what you were getting yourself into when I contacted you to actually it was that Field and Stream, and then you had shared something I posted. I don't even remember what it was, but you shared an episode and I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's kind of cool. And I reached out, and then here we are 4 years later. Who knew? That's really cool.
That is pretty cool.
And I think we'll have. Hopefully, we can get Bill. And I think Aaron is even going to join us.
Nice.
So, be good to catch up with him again. I hadn't seen him in a while. Let's see what has happened. A ton of stuff has happened since we got together last. I guess the biggie is Beto biting the dust.
Roberta
Francis. I guess we kind of all saw that coming. Thoughts on what we've seen of the Democrats since then? I know they had a debate that I didn't bother to watch because I kind of knew what was going to happen. Anybody partake of that fun? Hey,
there's not enough whiskey event in the world.
I value my sanity.
Old Warner Brothers cartoons.
Well, I was thinking it's like been a nonstop SNL episode. If SNL were to create a list of presidential candidates, I mean, but it's become reality TV.
It really has.
Yeah.
Joe Biden and his thing about how we're going to deal with domestic violence. We're going to punch at the problem.
And he's got a good in with the Blafrican Americans. I think that's how he said it.
Oh, it's just a laugh a minute. And every minute, did anybody watch any of the Shampeachment, that the 5 days of all of that stuff this week? Every time I turned the computer on and I saw Adam Schiff's face, I just wanted to smash my head into the desk. And for some reason, Facebook, every time I would turn the computer on, Facebook would have the happening now thing in the side, and there would be Adam Schiff, and I'd just be, I can't get away from it. Anybody got any? Oh, I know. We had 3 mass shootings in California. Wonder why they.
But guns are illegal in
gun-free zones.
How does that happen?
Is there?
Exactly. A 16-year-old got his hands on a gun?
Oh, it was a scary ghost gun. That's what they're saying now. And the media dropped that story. Well, as soon as they found out the truth about those stories, because like within minutes of that news, I somehow have gotten on Gifford's mailing list, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
I promise I did not sign you up for that. I promise.
It wasn't me.
I count it as opposition research, I guess, because I think I responded to one of their stupid polls and gave them all the answers that they didn't want to hear, and yet they still send me emails. So like twice a day I get a thing begging me for money for Mark's campaign, the astronaut guy. And then as soon as there's another shooting or they have a fundraising deadline, I get another email from Gifford's. And within minutes of that Saugus High School shooting, they sent out an email fundraising off of it. And then we come to find out, oh, whoops, it wasn't an assault rifle. It was a handgun. Whoops, it wasn't a legally owned gun. It was a 16-year-old who had somehow gotten a hold of it, whose father had been a domestic violence, convicted of domestic violence and had all of his guns confiscated. And now the new thing, and it's coming, and now the media is going to glom onto this. This gives them some hope. It's a ghost gun. Any thoughts on where this is going to lead next? Because I think the media is going to jump on that because it sounds scary, and the idea that people can build guns as though it's somehow legal for a 16-year-old to have a gun, even if it's not registered, or even if it's a ghost gun or whatever, that somehow this is some new horrible threat.
Well, last I checked, it was still against the law to kill people. So they got
Yes.
that. But I think they're going to talk about the 3D printed guns and the 80% lowers, and they're going to go right down the list.
Well, to the ammunition.
I think
also.
that's what they're going to go after. Yeah. Well, and here's the thing: not buy ammunition without it going into a database. That you have to have a driver's license. Goes into a background. They have to do a background check, and it goes into a database where it actually limits you on the amount of ammunition that you purchase. So if you try to go purchase more within a certain period of time, it'll come back with a denial saying that you're already at your limit. So how is it that a 16-year-old acquired this ammunition? How is it that his father could have acquired it? It must have been left over from before the domestic abuse situation.
Is there any way we reload cartridges?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got a reloading press in my garage, but I don't know that has it ever happened? Do we know whether it's ever happened that someone reloading their own ammo has actually done it in order to commit a crime? I don't know that
and how would that make it worse or better?
It wouldn't, but it would give. If it did, I think the media would glom onto it and start saying, "Oh no, we've got all this. We got to start banning or restricting people's access to the components."
Well, anyone who's 18 can go buy a black powder revolver. No background check. Some places you can even get it directly in the mail.
Yep.
You can buy the components at your local sporting goods store. And I mean, I don't know what California regulations are on that with buying black powder and so forth, but they're always going to try and push harder and harder against somehow restricting our ability to exercise our Second Amendment rights. But thanks be to God, I would say that when they start to become so restrictive that even you have some of the moderates sitting there saying, wait a minute, this doesn't quite seem to be in line with what the Second Amendment says. It's kind of like what's going on with this impeachment, that they're going so far radically left that they're actually disenfranchising many of the people who are in the middle. So I say continue to be as radical as you possibly can. Thank you. It's appreciated.
Well, and couple all the screaming for gun control in the Democrat debates and the primary with what we're seeing going on in Hong Kong. And we've got I've actually seen posts from people who are like, I'm starting to think, have a second thought about this whole Second Amendment thing, watching what's going on, watching the police shoot people point blank in Hong Kong and thinking, maybe people should be allowed to have guns to defend themselves from this kind of stuff.
Welcome to the club. That's why it was written.
Yeah.
And not just Hong Kong. And this is something that hasn't been in the news. In Iran, there's been massive protests in Iran. And in the last few weeks, it's approximately 1,000 civilian protesters have been shot by agents of the government.
I heard, too, that they were actually firing on demonstrators from helicopters. Is that right?
That I didn't hear, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Wouldn't surprise me. But no, we haven't heard anything much about that. But you see the picture of the students with the, you have the gun control activists in the U.S. saying, "Oh, well, nobody needs an AR-15 to defend themselves against a government. It's not powerful enough." And at the same time telling us that it's the most powerful, deadly thing that anyone could ever possess. They never seem to figure out the irony in that contradiction. And then you see the kids in Hong Kong fending off the police with homemade trebuchets, basically, and slingshots and bows and arrows. Some of those kids look like maybe Mia had taught them. They were pretty good.
The stupidity with that argument that, well, AR-15s, they're no match for, drones and whatnot. That's assuming that those who serve in our military are so dedicated to the government that they would follow orders to fire on the civilians that they are sworn to protect.
Yep. Yeah.
So really, when they say that, they're basically calling our military a bunch of psychos. So there's that.
But the thing I hate to say to people is the AR platform, whether it's in an M16 fully automatic or an AR platform, that's a lot of compromises for a weapon of war, and probably not going to be my first choice.
Well, and if you get right down to it, if you go far enough back, Grandpa's hunting rifle was a weapon of war. If you've got an M1 Garand, or if you've got a Lee Enfield Smelly in your safe, you've got a weapon of war, and it's just a bolt action rifle.
Yeah. I have at least one over there.
Nice. Oh man, I went to the the IDPA World Championship. It was at the Talladega, the Civilian Marksmanship Park in Talladega. Their pro shop is wall to wall M1 Garands. I was just like, I want.
Can I rub my hands against them?
Can I touch it, please? It's the only thing they had in there. I was just, couldn't afford it though, even at those prices. Oh well, one day.
There were Norinco knockoffs, so.
No, I want the real thing. I want the real thing, and those were real. Yeah, those were great. But it's interesting. This goes a completely different direction, I guess. But just that made me think. I went out to one of my fun stories that I think I've told on the show and I've written about in one of the books is shooting with my dad. And dad doesn't have practical firearms. Dad collects stuff. And he's got, old flintlocks and old muskets and things from the Civil War and the Revolution. And he's, I don't know why, but he's got, I think a Mark I or a Mark II Lee Enfield. And he brought the one and only time I ever had a chance to go out shooting with him. That's what he brought. And you shoot that a few times and lug that thing around for a few minutes, and it gives you a whole new appreciation for that generation. Because we talk about, we live in this great time when we have so many fantastic firearms from so many different manufacturers, and an AR, you can get an AR that weighs 5 pounds. This thing was an absolute boat anchor. And I just was exhausted after, carrying it around the pasture for a little while. I cannot imagine trudging across Europe with one of those. Absolutely astounding.
And shooting it all day.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
While being shot at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely astounding stuff. Anybody got any thoughts on Chick-fil-A?
They make a really good chicken sandwich.
Great chicken sandwiches.
Oh, I love their chicken sandwich.
I'm with Jeremy.
Yep.
They made a huge mistake. They really did.
I think so too.
These protesters that they're trying to appease, they will not be satisfied until Chick-fil-A is flying the rainbow flag and hosting Drag Queen Story Hour.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you look
and they
at
still won't be satisfied.
Right.
No, yeah, you look at the tweets from GLAAD and it's like, okay, well, that's not good enough. You need to also do this. You need to publicly affirm the LGBTQ LMNOP agenda.
Mm-hmm.
They'll probably make a sandwich dedicated to them. A transgender to be a rooster and a chicken breast or something.
It will identify as chicken.
That's right.
Right.
Maybe they'll just serve them pheasant. I don't know.
They'll go with that.
I would eat that one.
They've got that Impossible meat stuff now. That plant-based protein is supposed to be taste like beef. They'll just start serving that and calling that the trans chicken or something like that.
It's chicken.
Did you see the Babylon Bee? The last thing they posted about how Chick-fil-A was replacing the cows with the golden calf.
I did not see that.
You didn't share that one.
That's where satire meets reality.
Yes, it's so much of what they do is so close to reality that it's hardly even satire anymore. The left has become so crazy. I read something earlier today that they've been sort of going down that road for a while since they hired this new CEO. They've been donating to, in addition to, Salvation Army, behind the scenes, they've been giving to some rather lefty organizations, including Hillary Clinton's election campaign in 2016. So the point the article was making, that this is what we should have expected would eventually happen when the family turned the company over to this new guy to run it, the new CEO, that this is, and based on their past giving, that this is kind of where they figured it was gonna head anyway. We shouldn't be all that surprised.
Well, they're trying to appease everybody, and it's not going to work. They're too good of a target. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Well, the stupidity of it is that so much of their success has been because of all the hatred they've received from those on the political left.
Yep. So
that it was causing conservatives to go out of their way to actually eat at their establishments. And now they're going to same here. When I go up to the Twin Cities, that's the only place around here that you can get Chick-fil-A. I would go to Chick-fil-A. But now, they say that Popeyes has a new chicken sandwich that's even better. So may as well go have Popeyes. I mean, you might get assaulted while you're in the parking lot, but you may as well go to Popeyes.
If anything, though, this might make the lines a little bit shorter at Chick-fil-A. So you might not wait as long to get your chicken sandwich. Revelations from the NRA. I know this surprised a lot of people. I don't know. I think it was Save the Second had posted or shared an article about how Wayne LaPierre received a monster pay raise last year, even as they were being investigated and as revenues were dropping. I don't remember what the number was, but it was astoundingly huge.
Like 57% or something like that.
Yeah, it was
a better raise than I got.
Like, what has he done to earn the raise? Is the NRA ever going to change? You're a little bit closer because you've talked to some people who are sort of closer to Wayne. Ms. LaPierre. You've recently been to the Women's Leadership Summit. Is there any talk about what the future direction of the NRA is? Do you have any insight?
I really don't have a lot of insight. I know a lot of different people are trying to get on the board to make changes. And everybody that I personally know that's on the board, they are very tight-lipped. They won't say a thing. And so it really makes me curious, like, who do you trust? And if you were on the board, who would you trust? That would not be a board I would ever want to be on, because I don't know how they get things authorizing any of it, how that all works. It's all like a really big mystery. And at the Women's Summit, Wayne's not usually there, and he was there, and it was a kind of this whole thing like to make everyone feel sorry for them, for Wayne and Susan, and what they've been through all of this whole ordeal. And I actually stood up to ask a question at a different event. There were the high school girls came, they were on a panel, and I wanted to ask them, who are your mentors? Who do you look up to? And I was wondering if, they look up to Candace Owens or Ben Shapiro, or who do you look up to? And they all had their answers. But after that, Wayne got up and he had to talk about his mentor, and was Charlton Heston, and how he took him to every event to mentor him, to groom him to be where he is today. And so my question then, and that it still hasn't been answered, touring, because do you have any plans of not having this be the Wayne LaPierre show? Because it's not about Wayne, it's about us,
Right.
And so I don't know if it's made anybody think. And I do know it's made some of the other people who are on the board and who want to be on the board, they're thinking about it, because that's not how you should run any entity at all. It shouldn't be about one person or a couple. They shouldn't be the pillars. It should be about the whole organization, especially when we are the NRA. It's
right. And that's the thing that everybody keeps putting forward. Whenever we hear the attacks from the left talking about, defunding the NRA or taking on the NRA, the response, especially from NRA media, is always, well, the NRA is at 5 million members.
right.
You're talking about the membership, but is it really? I've always wondered if, as a life member, I don't feel like it's about me.
Right.
I feel like it's about Wayne and the NRA, and not us and our rights. And
well, it's kind of like all our congressmen and senators, honestly. I mean, they get in these positions of power, and it just becomes about power, and they forget why they're there. They are there because we elected them. Wayne is there because somebody thought he was good at the job, but really he's there to represent all of us. And how do we get these people to remember the rest of us? Because even when you go talk to congressmen and senators, it's more about power and getting reelected than doing what's good for the people.
And unfortunately, with the people in Washington, at least when they start, when they stop representing us, we have a remedy. There's something we can do about it. We can mobilize voters to or primary them or run them out of office, vote them out of office. How do we change things with Wayne and the board? I don't understand. Like you were saying, it's so I don't understand how any of it works. Do we have any, as the membership, do we have any power to make a change?
We're supposed to.
Yeah, except for just cutting off all the money.
And I think there's a way to do it, but again, it's going to require a lot of dedication from the members. What would the NRA board do if you suddenly had 500, 1,000 of the NRA members showing up at their meeting and demanding the removal of Wayne LaPierre, demanding an investigation into the financial accountability of the board and of the decisions that have been made? In the last, I would say it's probably been going on 10, 15 years, because it's only been in the last 5 years or so that it's become very apparent that this has become an organization that is just being used to line the pockets of those who are at the top of the leadership, rather than really using the member dues for what they're supposed to be using it for, that is, for defending the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't renew my membership last year.
I don't blame you.
And several people that I know did not renew their memberships. And like you, Lloyd, I'm a life member, And I even said in the one episode in my segment that I was contemplating, like, what do you do? But they are lobbying for us. They are at the Capitol. I've been at the Capitol, and I do know that they are working hard for us, but that's a very small team there. And that team at the Capitol, they are the ones who need the funding. And they are the ones who more money should be going to fight for our rights. And even on the state level, going to the capitals and working on the issues in every state. So to me, there's just a real severe misdirection of funds.
Yeah, and there's no real transparency about how where the funds go. It only became, I only found out, well, when all this scandal broke and they had the big falling out with ACMAC, that whenever you sent money in to, whenever they called you up asking for money, that was ACMAC, and the money that they raised through that phone call, if you donated, went to ACMAC, not to NRA. Because ACMAC had an arrangement with the NRA that they got to keep all the money.
Wow. That's interesting.
And that funded ACMAC's media stuff that they did for the NRA.
See, I didn't hear about that.
How effective is that? Yeah, that's well, I think we see. I mean, there's like 100 million estimates are there's 100 million gun owners, right?
So
how 5% are NRA members, and that hasn't really changed much in the last 10, 12 years. So why? I mean, that right there ought to tell you something. And the problem, and I think a lot of people, and you hear this from members, even the ones who stick around and continue to give them their money, they don't like the advertising. They don't like the tone of the advertising. They don't like the us versus them kind of stuff that seems to divide more than unite. We need to be we need to be reaching groups that we haven't reached before. We need to be expanding the membership, because 5 million is not enough. And if the 5 million starts to give their money to other places because they get ticked off, then where does that leave the NRA? I mean, that's a real tough spot to be in. But if you get 50% of gun owners, imagine if 50% of gun owners were NRA members, the power that the Second Amendment lobby would have.
Right.
But they decided to go the scare tactic route and try to encourage people to give out of fear rather than in teaching people about the importance of the Second Amendment. And so all you're doing is trying to siphon money out of the same people every year over and over and over again. You're not actually reaching new people. Yeah, the membership grew some because there was, was it right after Obama, or every time he got elected, membership went up just out of fear. But still, we never eclipsed 6 million. I think it was just a little over 5. So we still weren't bridging any of those gaps. And we talked about at the Gun Rights Policy Conference here in Dallas a few years ago, one of the things that was a point of discussion was, how do we reach the urban community? How do we sell to the good people in the urban communities who deal with crime and violence that we see on the news and that makes up the vast majority of gun violence victims that we, that 40,000 number that they want to throw around. We always point out that when you get right down to it, you throw out all the suicides, the vast majority of what's left is inner city. The good people in those communities can't defend themselves. Guns are demonized, and we're not going out and reaching that demographic. And we've got tons of money. We had ACMAC doing all this media stuff, but instead we were the first copy of America's First Freedom I get after, not long after Trump is elected is, do you stand with the president, on the front cover? And I'm like, but since when are we aligned with a political party? Since when are we a political organization? This is a civil rights issue.
Exactly. Now, there are a lot of local groups that we can participate in, you don't have to spend a lot of money to actually do some good. And then there's guys like Rick Ector that's doing incredible work in Detroit. We need to get involved, and we need to participate with some of our local groups, because that's where we're going to get something done.
Yeah.
Second Amendment Foundation, Gun Owners of America, your state organizations.
Well, we have 2 here in Minnesota, and all they do is fight with each other. So I stopped donating to them too.
Yeah. Well, I found that the most impact I've made is just going and visiting the legislators on my own, making appointments and going and talking to them face to face. And I've always felt like, oh, I'm just one person, but they do remember. And that's the biggest thing I've seen, the ones that will actually take the time to visit with you.
Yeah.
I actually get to shoot with my local representative.
That is cool.
Nice.
He does stand up.
Nice. Mia, talk about the project you're involved in. Why is the name of it?
The DC project.
DC project.
Yeah. That's been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot with them about how to get people to take your appointments, and it's really been helpful. When we go to DC, you go as a team. So I go with other women from other states, and there's ladies on a team, but it's helpful to have someone there with you so you have support. And some of the other states have different issues than we have in Colorado. And so if they start asking questions or you're trying to push your buttons, you have someone there who can help deflect answers or take the question for you. We've had women in our group that know a lot of statistics that can help answer questions especially for Colorado. And since we just have red flag laws now, and they were wanting to do that nationally, there was a lot of that this July, well, red flags this and red flags that. And we were able to give them some answers from women that are in other states that already have them where they're not working. So that's been a really cool thing. And DI wants to have that on a state level, to have teams that can go to the capitals in each state. And so we can, locally is where it's at. So, I know all my local legislators, but in Denver, I don't know everybody, and some of them have seen my face and some of them haven't. But I also live 6 hours away. So it'd be nice to have people up there that, like, here I am. Okay. Closer. There's this issue. Can you come? I was like, okay, drop everything, drive to Denver.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that, by the way. That's a really awesome project.
Yeah, it's been really fun. And it's kind of funny because when I was invited to speak on Capitol Hill last February with the background checks, my husband was really worried. He's like, don't go. There's going to be anti-gun people and a lot of hate. And I think I actually asked you guys, pray for me because I don't know what I'm getting myself into.
Right.
But he was like, why would you want to go? And I told him, I said, when does somebody get the opportunity like this? And if I don't speak up, who's going to speak up, blank up, and all our guns are taken away, or, religious freedoms? Because to me, if they take my guns, they're also going to take my religious freedoms. I mean, we see that it's in the shadows of everything all the time. Yep. And, I'm like, if I don't do this, then I have nobody to blame. So it was kind of scary, but in the end, it was okay.
Well, was it Dave Chappelle said the Second Amendment is in case that first one doesn't work out?
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, they're counting on us not showing up and not speaking up. And they're going to be ugly, and they're going to be, they'll threaten and they'll protest and they'll do whatever, hoping that we back down. And that's what I guess is most disappointing about Chick-fil-A. Not necessarily that they changed their whole strategy. It's that they did it in such a way that, trying to appease the rage mob, they're never going to stop. And what they're hoping is that people will do like Chick-fil-A did, or that someone like you would decide, you know what, I don't want to go to the trouble. It's just not worth it. And just not show up. And then they're the only voice that gets heard in Washington.
Yeah.
And it just emboldens them.
Yeah.
They rely on intimidation to get their agenda through. And the second somebody even shows an ounce of weakness, that just encourages them to keep doing it. And you know what? In many ways, they're being effective. They are, because I mean, you look at how Dan Crenshaw caved. He folded like a cheap suit when people were talking about red flag laws, and it was like, hey, maybe these are a good thing. No, because in essence, it takes away our right to due process, and ultimately the purpose is to take away our Second Amendment right.
Mm-hmm.
And most states have laws that cover everything that the red flag laws would cover anyways. So.
Yeah. And speaking of red flag laws, I think the one good thing to come out of the whole impeachment thing is it basically has killed gun control. I mean, nobody's talking guns anymore. And President Trump has basically said, it's off the table. I'm not talking about it. And now I think was it earlier this week that Manchin and Toomey were begging him, or Manchin and one of the other Democrats, maybe the guy from Connecticut, the evil eye doctor looking guy, were begging him to, please take up gun control again or reconsider it. And hopefully he's like, oh, I'm done trying to deal with you people.
Use both
right,
hands.
Exactly. Talk to the hand.
Carter, do you like guns?
Yes, I love guns.
Hey, bud.
Hey, welcome to the crowd.
What a dork.
A little bit of father-son love there, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
And little.
All right.
I try not to say things like that about my son, because then he brings up things that he remembers, and I'm just embarrassed, and I don't even want to start it.
Well, I employ one son, so, and I work with him every day.
All right. There's one thing. What else was I going to ask about? There was one other question I wanted your thoughts on, and now I can't think of it. So I guess it wasn't important. Must have been a lie, as my grandmother would say.
I'll post it on the website.
Granny had a whole bunch of weird sayings like that. If you couldn't remember something, she'd say, it must have been a lie. Okay. Maybe it was. All right. Well, thank you guys for staying up a little bit late and doing this. It's always fun to get together. And Mia, it was wonderful to get to see you. Thank you. Thank you for being here with us. And the next one is going to be December 14th. It's a Saturday. It's going to be 9:00 Central Time. And it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be our 200th episode Fun Fest, something or other.
Do we have to wear costumes?
No costumes involved. No. Don't have to wear your Sunday best or anything. Just show up and have a good time, and we'll have the whole cast, including Aaron Israel and maybe a couple of other special guests if I can round them up. Nice. And then those will be a surprise, last minute surprise. So we'll see what we can come up with for that. And again, thank you all for taking the time to do this, and for Dan and Jeremy, thank you for supporting the show, and John and me, I love you guys. Thank you so much for everything you do for the show and have for
love you too, man.
4 years now. It's hard to believe. Y'all have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Bye, guys. Have a great night.
Bye.
Good night.